Live over the board chess is just a little bit different than playing online. On chess.com, I'm 2100, whereas over the board, I am 1600. I played a tournament up in Boulder, Colorado, a couple months ago. I wanted to share some anecdotes from that tournament, some of my games, and what you could expect if you were looking to play a live tournament here soon. I draw the lowest rated player in our bracket. We're in the under 1800 rated section. It's a Swiss style tournament. It's unimportant. You essentially play people who have the same number of wins as you, and in the first round, everyone's got 0 wins. We start with a Queen's Gambit declined. I played this knight to b3 line. Really, I'm usually playing knight to g3, but in the first round of the tournament, I wanted to play something a little bit different. I didn't want to give away any of my preparation to any of the other players. Obviously, I'm probably overthinking it. I go for an exchange line, pin this knight, this bishop move here to break the pin, and on the 6th move of the game, my opponent plays pawn to b6, which I didn't really expect. I hadn't really seen that in my preparation, so I figured something was already a little bit off from this. The engine gave me a extra little bit of boost on that move. He might be preparing c5, but I'm really not too worried about that because that's probably going to leave him with an isolated d5 pawn. And so I just go about my normal development. The queen goes over here. Usually the bishop goes over here too as well. He goes about his development. I apparently was supposed to exchange here. I like keeping both my bishops on the board, and I played my bishop here to e2 instead of to d3, which is the normal square for it. I think maybe I was worried about this knight coming in, and then if I wanted to capture with this knight, this pawn recaptures. Now both of my bishop and my knight who would be on d3 would be pinned. I think that's a little bit of a weird threat to be worried about, considering both my queen and my bishop would be lined up on it. Anyway, castles. We line up. He does play c5. I line up both of my rooks right down the middle of the board, and he does capture right here, which I'm not too worried about. He does end up with that isolated queen pawn. If you are playing against an isolated pawn, you're going to want to put one of your pieces right in front of it so it can't move forward. My piece is already right there in front of it, and then I might want to start piling up on it and see if I could win that pawn. So I already feel pretty good about my position right here. He jumps his knight forward. You notice that my rook is lined up over here. I was also able to line up here, win the bishop pair. Typically, the bishop pair is a little bit better, especially if you're able to get an open game. He plays this knight over to e4, and right here, I feel really good about my position. I'm like, there's something wrong about this move. Captures over here. Obviously, my queen's hanging right now with the rook coming down, but I'm feeling really, really good about my position after this move. So I move my queen over here, attacking the a7 pawn, getting out of this pin. This is potentially going to be an opportunity for me because if he retakes here, obviously he loses his queen. If he retakes with the knight, then I've got this pressured here and this pressured here, so he's not able to do either. So he does capture. Computer likes me taking here, keeping both rooks on the board. I like the simplification. This is still hanging. This bishop is still hanging out over here. This is still loose. Obviously, the c3 pawn is still loose, but it's not already being attacked. He moves his queen over, and right here, I have an opportunity to improve my position with this bishop move. He has to move his queen. He might move it here. He has to keep his eye on this bishop. So I move here. He moves here. Now my queen comes in. I'm attacking this bishop. This bishop is still being attacked. A lot of stuff's going on. And so I miss opportunity there. I do, instead of that, decide just to capture with check. I win the bishop pair, but now when his queen moves over, I do end up deciding to take that pawn. But instead of this bishop being loose and this bishop still being under attack and being loose, I've uncorked my attack already, and so there's not nearly as much firepower behind it. He does play over here. I was expecting that, and I have another big opportunity that I also miss. I was already planning to take here, but what the computer really likes and what makes a lot of sense is to capture this knight right away. He can't really take with the queen because he'd lose his bishop, and I'd be up a piece, so he has to retake with the pawn. And with this, you see this damaged pawn structure. You're going to see this damaged pawn structure later. However, with the queen still on the board, I have more attacking possibilities. My king's way safer. So instead of that, I end up grabbing this pawn and then capturing. And it's pretty much the same pawn structure, except queens aren't on the board. I can't be, going for a check right here, winning this pawn. I can't be providing all of these threats. My king's super safe, his isn't. It would have been much better to have queens on the board here. But even so, I felt really good about this position. He's got 3 pawn islands. I've only got 2 pawn islands. It seems all good to me. I am up a pawn as well, so that's always nice. I move my bishop over. We both try to bring our kings into the game. I attack his bishop right here, and he offers a trade. I decide to accept it. That also brings his rook off of the second rank. He was blocking my king from getting in board. I bring my rook up, and right here I have another opportunity. First I decide to attack this pawn. He defends, and then I move my king up to f3. Really, the computer wanted it to d3, and you're going to see why here in a little bit. What I was trying to do and unsuccessfully doing was if I could trade some of my pawns. So if I was able to trade this h pawn away and gain maybe this h pawn for possibly the c pawn, I'd be able to start pushing this up the board. Or if I was able to trade, even better, if I was able to trade this pawn for this pawn, now I've got this passed pawn that nothing's here to defend. I wasn't able to do any of that, and you'll see later that the c3 pawn becomes weak. He attacks it right away. I check, I make another check, and you see he runs all the way into the corner here. And by the evaluation, I actually don't have any advantage right here. If we go back a couple moves, I did miss a tactic right here. I could give you a couple seconds to take a look to see if you see it. I actually didn't see it in the game. I just saw it as I was reviewing it right now. And just in 3, 2, 1, and that tactic right here is actually just to capture this pawn. With check, you have to recapture, otherwise you're going to lose your rook. And then you win this with a fork. He moves over here, and then really, I think the win here is just to go up, win all the pawns, and then as this king is distracted doing these moves, it's going to take too long, and I'm going to be able to promote my pawn. So I missed actually a clear win right there. Instead of that, I move over, allow him to get into a stalemate position, and you'll notice this c3 pawn is going to fall. I have to give it up for the d5 pawn, and now he's got 3 on this side, defending 4 on this side, and we've got a dead draw. So I had a winning position. I had some opportunities here. I had the wrong exchanges of pawns. I let his king get into this big fortress, and now I don't have a win. And you'll see over the course of the next lots and lots of moves, tons and tons of shuffling. My opponent offers a draw. I said, let's play it out. Let me see what I can do to grind this thing down. I didn't come here for a live tournament just to go for a draw. I decided to start pushing my pawns here. It's my only chance to win. You see, evaluation is all still 0, 0, 0. There's nothing going on. And right there, my opponent gives back the game to me. It's really interesting that a single move like that can give up the game. What he needed to do instead was to move over to a3 to allow himself to check my king at the right moment. So I go up here. This pawn is going to fall. He goes here. During the game, I was actually really worried that I can't capture this pawn because he's going to capture here and then captures, and now I've got 2 versus 3, and that's just nothing. And then I realize it does work because I have this check, and so I got 2 pawns for the price of 1, and right here my opponent resigns. It's 3-on-1. He's going to have to move his king over. I'm going to be able to get in here, maybe eventually win this pawn, or, capture here. It's going to be 2-on-0, and that is a known win. Every classical chess game is hard to win. You saw how just a little slip up on my part gave away the win, how a little slip up on my opponent's part was able to give it back to me. Being overconfident like I was in the middle part of that game allowed that situation to happen. Over the next 4 rounds, I'll give more stories about sore winners, stories about what it's like. What's the demographic like of a Boulder, Colorado live chess tournament? and stories about my great opponents who played some amazing chess. We made some great games together. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you here soon.